she had so many insights about relationships with adult siblings and so many other things. And then she said, you're a deeply spiritual person, Jill. Like you're connected to this Jesus and Mary Magdalene story, and you're not even touching that. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, is what I was thinking. But I was glad it was on the recording because I was so like stunned by the whole process. And I just remember leaving that day feeling so completely shifted, so completely different, so aware. I mean, everything looked different. I felt like my eyes, there was just the clarity in my eyes. And I remember picking up my kids from school and daycare that day, just giving them the most real hug I'd probably ever given them.
Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so glad you're here today. I have such an exciting guest, and I just got goosebumps. I'm so interested in diving into her story. Before we get started, if you're enjoying this content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you'd rather listen than watch, we are available on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, the whole thing. You can also catch us there. And if you want to keep track of what's going on around the planet, but it feels a little overwhelming for you, I totally get it. You might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, very free email newsletter highlighting what we think are important events happening around the planet. It's super easy to sign up. You just click the link in the description box down below. I think you're going to love it. And with that, I'd like to welcome in intuitive Jill Renee Feeler. Hi, Jill. How are you?
It's so great to be here, Kimberly. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really an honor.
Well, it's an honor to be able to have this time with you. So thank you for giving us some of your energy today. Where I want to start is something that's so fascinating to me, how you started unfolding your intuitive gifts. I think that's an interesting story because you weren't really involved in this arena at that time. Why don't you share a little about that?
Okay. And I'm sure for everyone, they have like 10 different slices of their own story they could share. So I'm just going to feel into which flavor of the story is most useful and impactful for this group. Yep, I'm feeling the usual story I share. So I have a background in business, and my kids were really little. This was probably around 2008, 2009. And I started to get kind of overthinking, which I tend to do, about a different business option for what I did with my career. And I was hosting, my husband and I and our family were hosting probably like a Father's Day gathering or something at our house. And I tend to be type A and I like everything perfect. And my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, saw me in the kitchen getting things ready. And she said, "You look like more stressed than usual." And I said, yeah. She said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, I might, be the CEO of this green company. And it's kind of exciting. And it's always what I wanted to do. And I don't know if the timing's right and stuff." And she just kind of looked at me like side eye. And she said, "You should go see my psychic." And I was like, "Thanks, Julie. Can you bring this plate of fruit outside for a second?" And I'm just like thinking to myself, that is literally the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. I would never, scoffing kind of thing. And then about 3 days, within about 3 days, I kind of remembered what she said, and I literally did like a qualitative cost benefit analysis in my head. I'm like, well, I could get something out of it, and it's not going to be that much money. And okay, yeah, what's the harm in seeing my sister-in-law psychic?
Okay, I just want to interject that you use the term in your head, quantitative cost benefit analysis.
Qualitative cost benefit analysis.
That just says everything right there.
I know. MBA, business, finance, economics, econometric analysis, statistics. Yeah. So I went to see her psychic. She got me in fairly quickly. And I had no idea what was going to happen or what was, I was just kind of curious, kind of skeptical, and just like, what do I have to lose with my attitude? And I met her person and we sat in her office, and she had her intuitive had a very shamanic, indigenous princesses, kind of iconography around, and dream catchers and things like that. So I definitely felt out of my element in a lot of ways. And she said, well, I know you're here for a business decision. So let's just like sit and we'll be quiet, and let's meditate for a little bit together and see what happens. I had never done that before. I'm not into meditation. I'd never done that. And I just sat there and it seemed like it went on forever, Kimberly. And I just remember thinking after a long time, I was like, maybe like nobody's there for me. Maybe this is the first time she's going somewhere in her space, and like, is anybody here for this poor girl, poor mom? Got nothing for this one. So I was, my imagination was going. And then she goes, okay. And she clicked the recorder and she started recording. And she said, well, I know you're here for this business decision, but there's a lot to talk about. And she said, I guess we'll just start off by saying that anyone can be the CEO of that company, but only one person can be the mother to your children. And that's what I'm getting for you. And it still affects me because I'm so embarrassed that I needed that reminder, Kimberly, but I needed that reminder. I was so type A, so focused, and so career goal driven. And my husband and I were originally only wanting to be career people and enjoy our lives. And then it was after 7 years of marriage that we were like, well, maybe we should have kids. We literally didn't want to have children initially. And then our hearts changed about 7 years into our marriage. So these kids were very like, okay, let's do this. And we really wanted to do this. But I was a great mom, and I am a great mom. But I also had this other huge part of me that was very distracted from the very important role. I know that sounds very traditional and possibly even anti-feminist, and I don't mean it to, but what she said to me helped me be present for my kids in a way that I hadn't been in their first 7 and 5 years of life. So I was like, okay, that touched me. What else you got? You know what I mean? So we talked for maybe an hour and a half. She had so many insights about relationships with adult siblings and so many other things. And then she said, you're a deeply spiritual person, Jill. Like, you're connected to this Jesus and Mary Magdalene story, and you're not even touching that. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, is what I was thinking. I mean, I was glad it was on the recording because I was so like stunned by the whole process. And I just remember leaving that day feeling so completely shifted, so completely different, so aware. I mean, everything looked different. I felt like there was just the clarity in my eyes. And I remember picking up my kids from school and daycare that day, just giving them the most real hug I'd probably ever given them.
Oh, that's a
Wild.
beautiful story.
Absolutely wild. So that was the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most important jobs that we have as mothers, just laid out. And I understand what you say. It sounds anti-feminist, but then I don't really know if the whole feminist movement was designed for a long-term benefit for humanity. I think there's some maybe undercurrent there that serves other purposes, not so much the health of the family union. That's just my opinion.
Feels true to me.
Yeah, it feels true to me too. So you walk out, and it cracks me up, Jill, because I have girlfriends like you that are just really type A and very, very, in that materialistic thinking mode, which is how we're taught and trained in this country. In our culture, and at least from what I grew up in my generation, we're really trained to, work, 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 be successful, achieve, achieve, achieve. It's not let's sit home and play on the floor with our kids. That's not what we're seeing. So you walk out, things are different. How does it progress from there?
I started to experience these very supernatural sorts of experiences with my kids and in the world. I feel like that experience with my sister-in-law's intuitive opened me up to maybe something that was already there, or maybe something new was showing it to me. I can't prove either way, right? Which is the scenario. But my younger daughter, she was probably 2 or 3 at the time, and she was sitting on my lap, and her older sister, 3 years difference, was, I think, already at school. Nobody else is in the house. The TV is not on. She's just sitting on my lap, like eating cereal. And I was just kind of thinking about my day. And I was thinking about something and she read my mind. And she kind of leaned back into me and she said, "Are you on your phone?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm not on my phone." And she said, I heard you. And I was only thinking. And she said, "Why did you say Obama?" And this was before Obama was even the nominee for the Democratic convention. He was not a daily, name. That was a very unusual thing. It wasn't unusual for me to be thinking about it because I do like politics. But I said, "I didn't say Obama." And she said, I thought I heard you. And I said, "That's cool." And I wanted to try it. So I thought to myself, the same way I was thinking about Obama and talking to a friend that day at work. And I thought to myself, "I love you so much, Georgia." And she leaned into me like a hug as if she'd heard every single word that I just thought in my heart. I mean, I was like, this is absolutely wild. I don't even know how I can tell the story. So I'm so glad I'm able to tell it now because it was such a breakthrough for me that there was so much going on more than what I was saying out loud. And then, of course, it freaked me out. My daughter is telepathically, and I didn't have that word in my vocabulary yet. She's telepathically connected with what I'm thinking. What else am I thinking that I don't want her to pick up on? Right? That's just not nice or not helpful or not inspiring or whatever. I'm like, okay, so now, wow, now I got to not only think about what I say, I have to think about what I think. Right. So that's when I started to be curious about meditation. And so there was a whole bunch of little kind of domino effects, but that was a big one. My older daughter eventually went to like a pranic healing workshop in October with a good friend of mine, just for weekends, because, of course, we're all told we're healers, right? And I come back and she's like, "What did you learn, mommy?" And she's sitting on her bed. And I said, "Well, I learned about chakras and how there's one on the top of your head." And I kind of went through them. And she put down the book she was reading and she said, "No, mommy, we have eyes all over us." She said, "We've got eyes here. We have eyes here. You have eyes here." And she called them eyes and she showed me where the other chakras were. And I was just goosebumping the whole way, just listening. Right. And she was like, "I'm glad you had a good time." And she just like, "Okay, I'm gonna go back to reading my, you know, Magic Treehouse series." It's just
Yeah.
so wild.
Out
Yeah,
of the
so there
mouths
was a
of
lot of,
babes.
they were
Yeah.
so present. It was so, and I mean, were they before and I just missed it? Or did they utilize, I should say, my experience to allow more of their experience? Because then I was going to be more present for it and maybe a cheerleader for it, but it was absolutely wild.
Yeah. That's such a good point. Did your awareness bring it out in them? Or is this wave of kids coming in so much more connected
Mm.
than we were?
Yeah, it's a fun question to think about.
Mhm.
I love that you just brought up the new wave of kids because that's been an interesting part of my experience is that once I realized I had psychic intuitive abilities that number one, remember before I didn't even believe they were possible. And then from the very first reading I did, I had a page full of information and the person was right there able to validate. And I was able to create my language with what still call the Holy Spirit, because I have a adult background as a traditional Christian. So I still use that language. But I've used God, Goddess, I've used Spirit, I've used Source, but I'll use the Holy Spirit in this conversation just so everyone knows. And if you don't like it, you can replace it in your mind with Source. That intuition, though, came really easily. And then once I started to play with it myself, that ability, I was like, well, do I need somebody in person, like right with me to share a message or whatever? No. Do I need a photo? No. Do I need them on the phone? No. So then I just started like, does it work this way? Does it work this way? Does it work this way? Who else can I talk to? Right. And that's when I started to realize the channeling ability, hands-on healing ability, hands-off healing ability. Yeah. So there were a lot of different ways that I was shown that I'm wired that I didn't know, that I felt a lot of responsibility to use, but I also felt a lot of trust. I do have incredible faith in God and incredible faith that when we have positive intentions and when we take ourselves seriously, but with a huge amount of humility, amazing things can happen in this reality and in our lives. and transformation and transcendence for ourselves and other people.
Yeah. And I think that you hit on something that I find is such a comfort in that once you kind of connect with that energy, where the flow is, where the information is, it just becomes stronger and stronger. And getting that connection becomes second nature. And it's easy to ask questions and it's easy to get answers. It's just that we as thinking humans need to believe it, need to have that experience. I did a thing recently where I was talking to someone who wasn't in physical and my daughter who's not in physical. And I was playing a game with both of them. And I said, I want to see a pink ballerina. Well, a few days later in my Instagram feed is the stinking funniest little video of a little girl in a pink ballerina costume doing the funniest little thing that my daughter would have done. And so what they did is they blended my request and met it from both of them. And I loved that.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
it was.
exactly the trust I'm talking about.
Yeah, it is. And it feels really good. So you started connecting, you started moving the energy around and feeling it and finding out where it worked and didn't. How on earth did this type A CEO gal go from the workaday world into becoming a spiritual teacher and healer and working with clients? How did that happen? How did it feel along the way? And how, I want to know how it feels now. I imagine it's very, very satisfying.
It is so satisfying. And I did feel, well, how do I even put this? That inner guidance has always, since then, especially, has always been really, really strong. Now, when I look back on earlier parts of my life, I can actually see that some giftedness was there, but I wasn't living it. I wasn't craving it. I wasn't denying it, but it wasn't important. It wasn't a priority. So the early childhood and early life experiences actually are there, the inner wisdom. Anyway, so I just wanted to kind of offer that part, that the corporate side of me, the part of me that that is really good at doing hard brain things. I still like that part of me. If you sit next to me on a plane or near me on a plane, you will see me doing Sudoku and timing myself and seeing if I could go faster the next time. I just like my brain, but I don't let it get in the way. And I have realized that because I wasn't a part of a spiritual community, I wasn't attached to certain beliefs and theories and theology and philosophy. It allowed what I call my team, which is what I call the connection of source energy, the connection of God that I'm utilizing, that I'm kind of specializing with. It allows them to share things with me and through me that are very uncommon and sometimes are contradictory to other very popular teachings. So I just want to kind of preface that the rest of the conversation, if there's anything that I share with this audience that doesn't ring true to you or feels like it's bothering you or irritating you, I just want you to put it to the side, okay? Because it's only offered with love. It's only offered, I believe, as another menu item. I believe we have all of these choices for how we can be soulfulness in our humanness. And I sensed my hypothesis is that some of us as souls were not very content with some of the options that were given. So we wanted to have new options for living as soulfully as we possibly could, not expecting the world to be anything other than what it is. Even that's contrarian to a lot of philosophy, right? So sometimes what I offer is a breakthrough and a huge relief to a lot of people. To other people, they find it very frustrating because they would rather that my giftedness is utilized to confirm things that they believe and that they're trying to work on. So I just wanted to kind of give that context that for some people, this would be like, oh my gosh, I've never heard that before, but that makes more sense. I hear that all the time, Kimberly. I don't like things that don't make sense. I can pretend and see if they're good for a while and see if they work. In other words, see if they provide me a better benefit at being the light that I am and supporting the light in others, because we are all light. We just don't know it. But then there's other times I tried, I'm like, you know what? I don't think that's true, or maybe it's just not true for me, but I think we can do better than that. And I like another menu item. And that's partly what I'm here to create.
Yeah. I heard something the other day, Jill, and I found it to be fascinating. It was that someone had said spiritually light and love are the same thing. And once I think about it, I'm wondering if that isn't completely true.
Okay, so
Because
here's a channeled message for us. Here, you continue. I'm sorry I interrupted.
no, it's like when I think about, everything is frequency. We're here in physical right now, but that doesn't change the frequency truth of the universe. And as we become enlightened, we become along the way more loving, more compassionate. So it kind of makes sense. What are you getting from your team?
I love it. So we're definitely, is it okay if I just dive into a message?
Absolutely. Oh, I love
Okay. I
this.
didn't think
Yes.
you'd complain. That's good.
Yeah.
What you're talking about as spiritually light and spiritually love being the same thing is perfect. And there's a metaphor that we love to utilize, and that is similar to, well, how do I want to put this? What words do I want to hang on this energy? It is very challenging for us in our human experience in these human templates to fully grasp, fully receive, fully embody, and fully transmit the version and purity of love that source energy has for everything. Light is the perfect metaphor in so many ways, and I think it'll become more clear as we talk. The light of the sun, our nearest star, is always on. In our lifetimes, we can reliably predict that it will always be on. We don't even need to think about the lifetime of the star in that experience. And yet, even though that light is always on and is life-giving in so many ways, we could not live without it. We wouldn't be without our nearest star, right? There are cloudy days. There are eclipses. There is the rotation of the earth that seems to point away from the sun, making us pretend that the sun isn't on anymore. It's always there. But from this experience, in this gravitational experience of being in these bodysuits on the spinning planet, we get to have experiences where it seems like God's love isn't there, where the sun isn't on and the sun isn't available. It's always available. It's just offered in the experience. Nothing we need to worry about. It's nothing we need to strive for. We don't need to strive for God's love. It is as reliable as the sun in our lifetimes. So by choosing potentially to believe that God's love is not only there for us, not based on what we know or don't know. It's not based on what we believe or don't believe. It has nothing to do with how many abilities or lack thereof that you have or don't have. It doesn't matter if you're in a bodysuit or you've already transitioned. That love of source is available to all, even when we're having a day where we don't feel so full. Even when somebody else is having a lifetime, it seems, where they're just constantly being a jerk wherever they go, that sun, that light, that love is available to them just as easily as it is to you. We can't get in the way of God's love, and we truly can't get in the way of the sun, the nearest star in our planet.
Yeah, beautifully put. That disconnection that we perceive on the planet, in my opinion, is why we come. Because that coming down and sensing that disconnection and climbing back up to it or reconnecting to it is the innate challenge, and it's what grows us and hones our skills in a way. How do you feel about that, or what does the team say about that? That the challenge is the purpose of coming to Earth.
That's a good one. It can be the purpose, and it is the purpose for some. And I'm going to offer the first of potentially a few radical ideas. As souls, as our soulfulness, we were never not fully evolved. As souls, we have nothing we have to learn. And if we did have something to learn, we probably wouldn't come to Earth to learn it, because the risk of that lesson getting distorted or not happening is too high. Earth does not have to be viewed as a school by anyone here. But we have the option, as very powerful human beings, to pretend that Earth is a school. We even have the ability to pretend it's not only just school for us, we have the ability to pretend it's school for everybody. Now, the idea that Earth can be a school, but doesn't have to be a school, and the idea that we don't have to learn anything as a soul, because we are always fully ascended and we're not ascended. We are perpetually ascended and we can't not be ascended. That idea does not prevent us from learning things in this reality. That idea does not block us from acquiring new skills and having new experiences. It doesn't prevent any of that. But to start from a place of wholeness as who and what you are as soulfulness, I guarantee will let you feel more connected to God in this reality.
Yeah, beautiful. That's an interesting concept. So if we look at that Earth is not a school, or it doesn't need to be a school, why would someone incarnate here? It's challenging, it takes full focus, it can be confusing, can be emotionally stressful, painful. Why would we incarnate if not to learn the lessons?
There's a couple different ways I want to answer that. First, I do want to start with a metaphor. I've been to Disneyland a few times with my kids. We actually love Disney and Disney World. There are times when we go and it might be rainy. There are times that we go and it might be busier than we thought it would be. There are times that we go and a ride is closed and we really wanted to ride that ride. There are times that we go when it is so blazing hot that it's not the best time. There are times that we go that by day 2, I am convinced that strollers should be banned at Disneyland because they get in the way of everybody, meaning this is not my happiest Jill and I need to go home or back to the hotel or have a cocktail or something to chill myself out, my type A self. It's kind of like that. You know, there's going to be spots in the Disneyland experience that you're so happy you're there and it feels like the happiest place on earth. And there's going to be parts that you go, I really bummed that ride is closed. I'm really bummed that, so-and-so got an ear infection and we didn't have, it wasn't the full experience we thought it would be. The hotel pool was closed or whatever. This is a high risk, high stakes environment, this reality. It should be, and it is ideally taken very seriously by souls that incarnate here. The beauty will always be in this reality. It will always be available to us. The ability to feel loved and feel loving, the ability to look out at the trees and the leaves and the nature and a bunny where it doesn't belong, and just going, wow, this is so beautiful. Look what we all built here. This is such a playground. This is way better than Disneyland. Oh, but there's death. Oh, but there's sickness. Oh, but there's food that is not ideally suited to not even just humans, to anything. Oh, but there's this. Oh, but there's that. Yeah, but there's the good stuff. So what's been shown to me, not shown in a clairvoyant way, but it's clear to me that Earth comes with a lot of warning labels. And humanity, if you're going to incarnate as a humanity, within the human species, you get even more warning labels. Just so you know, this could happen. Just so you know, this might happen. We'll whisper all the things we need to whisper. Please don't take it personally if you get cancer. Please don't take it personally if a child's taken from you. Those things happen in that reality. Rainy days at Disneyland happen, and it doesn't have to be anything about you. And know that God's grace is available to you and was never not available to you. And when you need it, go to it. Go in you for that love, for that light, for that comfort, for any sort of healing that you need to get through the hard stuff, the risky stuff that can and does happen to the best of us in this reality. So it's clear to me that sometimes even after an incarnation, we're sort of quizzed and polled. Okay, what do you think? It's almost like a clipboard. What do you think? Should we shut this thing down? How bad was it? And a lot of us go, it was bad at times, but there's no place like it. It's wild. Please don't shut it down. But what about the risky stuff? Look at this day. Look at this day where you wanted it all to end, not just for you, for everybody. What about this day where you were like, I can't go another day. Nobody should have to be here. Nobody should have to go through this. I saw you on that day. I'm going to show you on this life review. What happened to that? Well, that was my humanness. That was my humanness turning away from the sun. That was the worst solar eclipse I've ever been through, and it went on way too long. But then the sun came on again. And I had another beautiful moment, another beautiful day. And now here is my soulfulness without the kind of awkwardness and clunkiness of the human template. Now I'm more clear that that's a magical place. But still put those warning stickers on it because you don't want people to take those lightly in that reality.
Yeah. That is so true. Earth is a challenging environment. There are days I don't even want to be here. And yet, if I cycled out right now, I know it'd be about 3 seconds before I'd say, let's do it again.
Yep.
Let's do
And
it
we
again.
do. We
And we
do.
do.
A lot of us do. Yes.
A lot of us
So
do.
So I'm concerned, Kimberly. I really am. The more that I have with these gifts stepped into the community in a very unusual way, right? It is very unusual to access giftedness that apparently you had the whole time, but you just weren't kind of facing that part of the sun. And you step into a community, and I started the podcast right away. Oh, you asked the question about corporate. So I was in corporate, and I was like, I've got a lot that I want to share. How am I going to do that? And they didn't call them podcasts then. It was Blog Talk Radio was the system that I used. So every Tuesday night, I would just get on there and share a message. And I met some metaphysical people in the area because they were like, oh, wait, you're an intuitive? Like, we want to do a reading for me. You know, that happened pretty quickly. So to practice readings for a while, then I did professional readings for pay, just a little money on the side kind of thing. So with that podcast, I would be at my corporate job. I only worked part-time, and I think I took summers off, if I remember right. But I would do the podcast on Tuesday nights, feeling like I was a double agent. It felt so wild and so cool. I'd walk in on Wednesday morning, like, you guys have no idea what I did last night, right? And I kind of liked it. They didn't need to know. They did. Nobody needed to know. It wasn't, I didn't need to announce it. I didn't need to go, whoa, you guys, guess what I'm doing? I knew they weren't into it, and I respected that. So that opportunity for me to just kind of play in the space. And again, I was immediately starting to get very different conflicting information with what other people were getting. So I would have clients to me saying, I have, cancer for the second time. What's the message from my team so that I don't get this again? And I was thinking in my logical, rational way and, experiencing the client's team, connection to God, also called spirit guides, et cetera, saying, wait, she thinks that she can prevent cancer from coming back. And they were like, I know. How bold are you going to be in telling her what we want you to tell her? And I'm like, I love her enough to tell her the truth. So tell me what you want me to tell her, and I will not hold back, I promise you. And sometimes they would say, what if you didn't cause your cancer? Which also means you can't control it, which also means you can't prevent getting it again, maybe. And when I trusted and I allowed the teams to determine what was being said, and I was getting out of the way, but also feeling some responsibility. So using my own discernment and making sure everybody's team knew I was not there for BS. I would just call BS on a whole bunch of things. So there was like this boundary around what the teams knew I was up for and what I would not put up with. I'm not going to put up with BS answers. She's probably talked to 10 other people that have told her, well, didn't you read Louise Hay's Heal Yourself? What is it? Heal something, heal your life. She already knew all that. And I didn't know all that. So I was surprised. I'm like, she thinks she caused this. What's going on? Oh, Jill, you haven't even read the whole library of spiritual things. And thank you for not, because now we can talk to you in this fresh way. So the realness that was coming through for my clients allowed them to really, again, have a new menu item that they could look at. And I found softness. I found grace. I found a lot of type A people feeling like they could control everything, including their light, including the light in others, not successful people, right? Start to soften in the reality of, oh, this is risky. So there's nothing I could have done to prevent it. There's maybe nothing I can do to prevent it from coming again. And now what do I do? Okay, let's talk about this in a whole other way now. You never stopped being your light. This doesn't have to consume your life. What else is going on in your life that you'd rather be talking about than pretending that you have full authority over whether you do or don't have cancer? Pretending that you have shadows and past lifetimes and other things you're here to heal and solve and learn and grow, and all of this obsession that we can come up with. And I said, what if your best opportunity right now is to receive the light of source energy, and even amidst cancer, be the light of source that you are, whether it's healed or not? And she just softened so much. She said, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to do chemo, do chemo. If you want to do radiation therapy, do radiation therapy. It's up to you to decide what you say yes and no to. But the idea that there's some lesson and God wanted you to get cancer, oh no, I'm putting a new item on your menu that's not there. This is a totally different storyline for you. And it works so much better.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's segue right now
Okay.
and talk about what's happening on the planet right now. And the reason
Mm.
I bring it up is because during my lifetime, I don't think I've seen, well, clearly, I have not seen this much contention, unrest, confusion, breakdowns of systems. We're clearly going through something big on the planet. And it's hard. It's hard as a human to get up and move forward through a day when systems that we'd always known are breaking down, when things don't work like they used to, when we can't rely on plans and programs that we thought were always going to be there for us. So it's become much more, I don't know, interesting, I suppose would be a way to say it, how our lives are unfolding and not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring or what the world's going to be like in a month or 2 months can be unnerving. Can you share with me, Jill, about
Mhm.
your perception of what's happening on the planet and how we as humans, those who are watching right now, can hold on to something that's going to be a little bit more soothing and positively directional than maybe floundering in this madness.
I'm happy to. Okay, so let's do number one. And I think this is going to be the biggest power move here. Consider your expectations. Most of the confusion, most of the fretting and disorienting sort of feeling that so many are having is caused by one thing, and that's a belief that it's not supposed to be this way. I would invite everybody to just pause this, and maybe when you replay it, just really give yourself a moment to pause this part and just let yourself sit with how you thought it was supposed to be, or where you thought we would be at this time in linear time. Where did you think we would be right now? Okay. And I'm going to invite you to ask yourself this pondering question. What if that wasn't true? What if what you believed we were supposed to be experiencing now is not true? And it's not that what is happening is supposed to happen, just that it is happening. But what if our teams, what if our spirit guides aren't like, oh, this was not on the agenda, you guys, like, or what if they're saying, this was planned, all of it is just like, just let go of it all for a moment and let yourself just be honest and real about what is happening. And then I want to invite you to fill yourself up with God's love and let yourself know that that's not a reflection of you. No one's going to hold you accountable for those protests and those riots and those war bombs going to another part of the world. No one's going to go, I thought you were there. Why weren't you taking care of that business? This is a mess. And you were there and we were holding you accountable. Nobody's going to do that. No soulfulness is ever going to point their finger at you about those things. Okay. So now we give ourselves more permission to be ourselves in the light you are, no matter what things look like right now, and no matter what they look like 10 days from now, or 10 months, or 10 years, or 10 centuries from now. This reality has a record of chaos. This reality has a record of unpredictability, uncontrollability. So I want to be super respectful and loving in how I offer this, but some of us are more comfortable with the idea that this reality never had to awaken for us to be the light of source energy that we came here to be. Some of us are better at being the light of source that we are by letting this reality be whatever it is, with no attachment and no expectations that it's going to be any different in the future.
So if we focus on focus on the love and light of God, and then we get up in the morning and I don't know, if you watch the news, you turn on the news or you go onto social media, and it's heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. At least that's how it can feel for me on some days. It's like, oh my gosh. Sometimes, Jill, it's so hard being human because as a human, you're an emotional being. And this is in a very emotional place, very high, very low. And it can hurt my heart to see the level of pain and disruption and destruction going on the planet. How do we stay in our humanity and that love and not just get overwhelmed emotionally.
Yeah, oh, I have great news there. And this is another observation of what's going on, related in this theme of adding new menu items. Okay. So within the spiritual community, and it had been very common to be very empathic and feel as if what other people were going through is something we were supposed to feel, or that, well, if you have the ability to feel someone else's pain, then of course it's your job to feel someone else's pain. And a new menu item, literally for literally everyone to choose from, is very different than that. Okay. You can be the observer of someone else's pain, suffering, excuse me, and not feel your emotional body, your energy body plugging into it. You can feel a loving detachment that my energy field is mine and their energy field is theirs. And I'm doing no one any favors by pretending that their pain is my pain. Okay. So, a caricature, an archetype that might be helpful to look at is the old Star Trek movie with Captain Kirk and Spock. Some of us have gone all Captain Kirk. Spock had really, really good wiring. Spock had a really, really good non-human template, right? It was the Spock template, Vulcan, right? There's a lot of Spock-like heart center consciousness that I find tremendous benefit in, because Spock was loving. He was decent, he was kind, he was caring, had amazing integrity, but he did not have the emotional system that tripped up Kirk. Captain Kirk couldn't think clearly sometimes because of the human emotional wiring. So that's a great metaphor for literally a new menu item for how we can be caring, how we can be loving, how we can be compassionate and kind, and not be overwhelmed by it and not be all consumed by it, right? So when I connected to that, I was like, oh, this gets way better, because I've always been very sensitive and very, very empathic. And I didn't find it to be empowering, right? I didn't like the feeling of, why am I crying about my classmate's dog that died and she's not even crying? I don't know if this is helpful to anybody. It may be a cool story that, oh, I'm so caring, I'm so sensitive, but it's not, I don't feel like I'm my full Jill in the moment of feeling so consumed with emotion. So there are other options, and anyone at any moment when they're feeling that overwhelmed by the ills of the world and the pains of society, could just pause and put their hand on their heart and reflect on, what else could I also be experiencing right now? We can't shut off the empathic ability, but you can dim it like a dimmer switch on the light, because there's so many other ways that we can be that source energy. God isn't crippled, right? God isn't crippled in emotion, right? When it is observing very clearly what is happening here, but we are, and we don't have to be. We can be a stronger, I want to even say cooler in a way, however we want to take that, but a more high functioning version of caring, compassion, and grace that I like so much better. It's more durable in a
Yeah.
reality where the pain is endless.
Okay. And that's a good point. The pain on the planet is endless. I mean, it just is cycling continually. This is a high risk reality system. It just is. It's the way it's set up. I feel like that every time I get on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh,
this may or may
reminders are
not work out.
everywhere. This reminders are everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the freedom, and let's just say, let's talk about the next few months, what's coming over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
If you see the world around us, if you can extrapolate events like you do in a business world, if this happens within our corporation, what's it going to flesh out to in 6 months? If we look at the summer coming up, it could be a very, very lively summer. And you could categorize it lively, not so good, lively, just, people are waking up, whatever the word, however you want to characterize it. How can we go into the next 3 months into summer and just have a blast in the middle of all this unrest and not feel a little bit irresponsible or not working hard enough? I know that I, as a social justice warrior, I want to fix everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we lay down that sense of obligation to feel the struggle, to feel the pain, to feel the empathy, and just to have a little bit of fun without it feeling inauthentic?
Oh, I love the way you asked that question, Kimberly. So here's a reflective question. What if there's nothing you can do about it? What if some of those headlines that bother us most, what if some of the predictions for what will happen this summer, and we'll give our own version of the predictions that we have for the next few months, because winter for our friends down under. What if that is not within your control? What if there's nothing you can do about it? And what if the biggest opportunity you have is to be the light and the love and the wisdom and whatever else you want to be, including fun, right? In 2 months of the year or whatever. That to me is more true, way more true. So that's a very different, you're prepared for something different, right? If there is a flood coming and you're busily throwing the sandbags on it, and then somebody says, look, all the models show this structure is going to go. I'm sorry, this thing is going to flood. You'd probably stop sandbagging. You'd
And you'd
probably
start
go,
swimming.
where's the boat? Where's the boat? Did everybody get a floaty on? I mean, let's do what we can. Get the pets, get them on the board. Let's, calm everybody down, right? Okay, this is what it is. You know what I mean? And then you kind of suck it up. When you have a different expectation, you act differently. That's why it is very uncomfortable for me to give an expectation that sounds doom and gloom. But really, what I'm saying is the best predictor of the future is what we have right now. We have chaos. It feels like things are coming apart at the seams. In some ways, they are coming apart at the seams. And I have no part of me that wants to say, but it's almost over. I have zero part of my connection that says we'll get to the good part soon. If you want good parts, you need to look for them now. If you want good parts in this life, you need to look for them every day. Because truly, they're right there. Even though this nightmarish kind of other things are happening, they might not even be happening to you, but you're empathically acting like they are, right? So here's the other part of that prediction. A lot of spiritual communities have a very apocalyptic mentality. It has to get really bad before it gets really good. It's very Revelations. It's very New Testament Bible stuff. This reality in every generation has had at least one group of individuals that was sure it was the end of the world or the end of humanity. And all of them were wrong. I like the humility in that. And I like the resilience of humanity in that we are so confident that humans cannot survive another thing. And then we do.
We do.
This template is freaking awesome. It is so amazing. It literally is so transcendent. There are things that have happened in every single one of our lives that should have and could have could have and maybe should have taken us out. And we're still here, right? And yet we think some other thing is going to take us out. I mean, we will all have an expiration date on our lifetime. And I have a lot of teachings and talks about that kind of thing, the afterlife and all of that, because it's again very different, very empowering and sobering, but like in all the right ways, right? But this idea that if we're expecting, well, surely this is gonna be the end that so and so talked about. Some of us actually get a bit of a kind of a dark high on the idea that they maybe want, like they're so over this reality. They're not seeing the magic in it. They're not feeling the transcendence in anything. And I think for a lot of individuals, there is this kind of like second chakra sort of storyline of somebody unplug this, please. I don't know what it is, but somebody just please pull the
Yeah.
plug because this,
Yeah, we start over again.
yeah, I don't want anyone to suffer like I have or whatever. But again, they're denying their own transcendence in that statement. Yes, they're thinking about what's horrible, but they're not even giving themselves credit or their godliness the credit that yes, they experienced it, but they also survived it. Why isn't there more emphasis on that? So the tips for the next 2 months are it's almost like not keep your head down, keep your head up, but rooted in the light, literally the ocean of light that you are inside yourself. Foster and nurture that where you can feel loving, where you can feel optimistic, where you can feel almost delusionally, optimistic about things that maybe we shouldn't, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe it's not delusion, maybe it's faith, maybe it's trust, maybe it's godliness, because their godliness is like they're going to make it. They always make it, right? If we could cling more to that part, that I don't know how this is going to go, but somehow we tend to make it in this reality. Let's emphasize that versus all the focus on, well, this is going to be bad and that's going to take us out. And if this is just bad enough, that will awaken that group. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because I know I've been around a long time, and that was part of my awakening, my real awakening around, okay, I have this gift, so I have this connection. Oh my gosh, everybody says this amazing stuff's going to happen. It's going to be this and it's going to be that, and we're not going to work, and nobody's going to get sick, and nobody's going to pass, and just going to transcend and float up in the sky. What? This is so great. And then I was like, actually, and even like, oh, all the new kids born after 2000 of this. My kids were 2002, 2005. And when I was in the classroom, I'm like, he's a little asshole and I don't want him around my little girl, and I'm just like, but he was after that date. Where's his rainbow child persona going on there? He's a little shit. I don't like him. You know what I mean? Don't trust him at all. I love him, but I have boundaries around him in my energy field for sure. There's just this reality part of the love, and to me, the real new earth is what we are bringing, not what this world is going to be. We want to embody a version of godliness because we can. I wish it meant that this certain things about others and this reality and what the future is going to look like. I've detached from that and been better at being at my light as a result of it.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing. So how do we find out more about you?
Okay. I'm an overcreator. I'm an overthinker and an overcreator. So on my website, jillreneefeeler.com, JILLRENEE, F as in Frank, EELER.com. There's a lot of information, and if you browse around in there, you will find a lot. I share most regularly in my membership. We do a monthly message the first of every month, unless I'm traveling, and it might be a day before or a day after the first of the month. We do an online open house around the middle of the month. I do private sessions. I don't have a trip planned, but I love planning absolutely epic, transcendent travel to places that I feel led for us to go. And they tend to be places other people aren't going. I've never been to Shasta, never been to Sedona, and really I'm not led to. Maybe it's because I feel like those bases are covered, but we go to Egypt, we go to Greece. I've done Mary Magdalene trips in France. Machu Picchu is on my heart for that kind of trip. But there's 3 books on Amazon if you search my name. There's podcasts. I got into real estate last year. I just had this epiphany of I do have financial goals, and I don't want to, now that I'm no longer waiting for the world to awaken and like flock to my door with my prowess and spiritual abilities. I'm like, well, I'll just do something totally different and mainstream. So I love having a lot of roles to play. So if you're in my area, then you might see me as an agent too.
Yeah. I think we should go to Shasta, Jill.
Do you?
Okay. I think that would be fun.
Kimberly, that you've made a tempting offer. We'd make it good.
Yeah, it would be fun.
If you're serious, I'm in. If you're serious, I'm in.
And I know someone who would join us.
Okay, good. Yes. Yeah. I think between our audiences, a lot of people would join us, and my audience would be laughing the whole way saying, because I never said I would never go to Shasta. I just never felt led to go to Shasta. But the way you just said it, I'm like, well, why not?
Why not? Why not? Yeah. This has been lovely. Thank you so much for your time. All the information on Jill will be linked in the description box down below. Super easy to find. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one, or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.